Hello and welcome to the short Vort on the double parsha of Vayakhel Pekudei. In Perek Lamed Hey, Pasuk Gimel, the Pasuk says, Lo savaru eish b'chol moshvosechem b'yom HaShabbos. You should not burn a fire in your house on Shabbos. The Shalach Kadosh says that this refers to not even letting the fire of anger kindle in your house. You should never get angry. Rabbi Yo Lapian, the great Musar leader, told in his yeshiva he made certain rules. And one of them is to make extra care not to get angry on Friday or Shabbos. Why? Because on Friday, during the whole hustle and bustle of preparing for Shabbos, people to be stressed and they become angry. So therefore, he told them not to be careful. But also for people on Shabbos, they'll get upset. They're little kids at home and they don't always behave. And at the Shabbos table, don't get upset on Shabbos. That's part of Lo Savaru Eish B'chol Moshvosechem. The book Love Thy Neighbor, the Sefer Love Thy Neighbor, brings down a story of someone came to Rabbi Cheskel Levenstein, the Mashgiach Ruchani of the Mir Yeshiva, and this Kolnik, so he was complaining about his wife was not getting prepared on Shabbos properly, and he kept, telling her what to do, and she wouldn't listen. What advice do you have for me, Mashgiach? So Reb Levenstein responded to him, well, why don't you take a broom and help your wife? The story was quoted from Reb Mordechai Gifter, the Rosh Yeshiva tells in Love Thy Neighbor. Now for Pikudei, so the Parsha in Perek Lamed Ches, Pasuk Aleph, Chaf Aleph says, Eila Pikudei Mishkan. These are the reckonings of the tabernacle. So Reb Usher Sinclair quoted a story shared by Rabbi Yoel Gold, and I'm sure I've heard it on audio once or twice from one of these sources. So every year on Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Stephen Amon's wife would go to her mother's grave at the Staten Island Jewish Cemetery. One year she knew she wouldn't be able to go at the regular time, and a few weeks beforehand they happened to be driving near the cemetery. So Rabbi Amon said, perhaps we can go early and visit your mother's gravesite. So this is what they did. And they went there, they said some tefillos, and then Rabbi Amon noticed that a hearse had driven up nearby for a nearby grave with several cars, and these people came over to him afterwards and they said, we need a 10th man so we can say Kaddish. So he said, of course I'm going to go. He went over, they said Kaddish, and then they were leaving without burying the body. And he said, wait, you didn't bury the body. They said, no, we have a guy in the machine, he's going to take care of it, and we're going to go. So he remembered the mitzvah of Mace Mitzvah, that there's no one to completely bury a body. That's also a case of Mace Mitzvah, of the abandoned dead who need to be buried, and there's special rules and a special level for taking care of this mitzvah. So he went over to the guy on the tractor, and he said, do you mind if I borrow your shovel and I'm going to put it in myself? I'll bury the nifter. And the person said, sure, go ahead. And after an hour and a quarter of shoveling, he finally completely buried the nifter. But he couldn't help wondering why had it just happened this way. Why did it happen to be here now? Why did these people show up and not bury? Why was I the 10th man? All these different questions. And one of the things he did after he buried the nifter was he wrote down the name of the person as he was putting in, that marker onto the grave. So Rabbi Amon called Rabbi Herman Neuberger, who's Zatzal, who was the executive director of Ner Yisrael Yeshiva, which is the yeshiva which Rabbi Amon went to. When he told Rabbi Neuberger about the name, Rabbi Neuberger almost dropped the phone. Rabbi Neuberger told Rabbi Amon that 40 years ago, when Rabbi Amon was a young boy and his father was not able to pay the full tuition, he was looking to find someone to pay the tuition. And there was this man who who came up, stood up, and he stepped up to pay the grave. He paid for the tuition. That's the person whose grave he had just buried. What an amazing coincidence. And Rabbi Amon then suddenly remembered that one of the sugyas, one of the topics that he learned in the Gemara in the yeshiva, was about meis mitzvah, to bury a dead when there's no one else, bury a dead person when there's no one else around. What an amazing, these are the accounting. Hashem has a cheshbon for everything. It continues in the Rosh Hashanah Tefillos, it says that Hashem remembers all that is forgotten. Rabbi Yisrael of Rizin said that when you forget, God remembers, but when you remember, God forgets. This means that if someone's constantly reminding other people that he did favors for, then God doesn't bother remembering the good deed that he did. But if someone forgets the favor they did from other people and he doesn't feel that he's owed, then God will remember. So that's part of God has accounting for everything. It's no coincidence that this week I'll be visiting the kever of my mother ahead of her upcoming Yahrzeit. And next week, I hope you'll join and listen to the short Vort on the Yahrzeit edition. This is unusual that it will be on Parshas Vayikra. Usually it's been on Sav and Metzora, but this year, because just like we had, it's a rare year where we fasted Aseret B'Teves, Purim. Purim was on, actually both of them, Purim and Aseret B'Teves were on Friday. All these weird anomalies on the calendar. So I hope you'll join then. Thank you for listening. We'll have a wonderful week and a wonderful Shabbos.